Hi, I'm Queer. Nice to meet you. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Club AJ. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, go and hit that subscribe button and become a part of the family. We're gonna get straight to the video. Today, I'm gonna be telling y'all my coming out story as a black Pentecostal pastor's child in the South. And let me say this now, this video is not to bash Christians. So if that's what you came here for, that's not what's happening in this video. I'm hoping that this video does either one of two things. One is to help someone that's in a similar situation, for them to know that they are not the only person that's been through this and not the only person that's going through this, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And two, to give parents or people with queer relatives some insight on what they may have been through, what they may be going through. Before we get into the story, I do want to give a trigger warning. I will be talking about some of the lowest points in my life, times where dying or self-harm seemed like the only options for me. I'm going to do my best to censor everything, but I don't want to sugarcoat this story. So let's get into it. So I guess I should start with when I realized I was gay. Well, let me set the scenery first. So the year is about 2011, 2012. I was about 10, 11 years old. I was born into a Pentecostal family. My dad was a Pentecostal pastor. He was brought up under a Pentecostal pastor. So was my mother. My mother is a Pentecostal evangelist. I was raised in the church. I grew up in the church. I have one brother that's 4 years older than me. So at this time, he's about 14. I'm about 10. I start the story here because this is when I not only realized that I was really gay, but this is when I started acting on these things. This is where I started writing about a girl in my diary, or having a crush that I'm scared to run into in the hall, or learning a girl's schedule so that I can run into her in the hall, and stuff like that. So this is where I'm going to start the story. At this time in my life, being gay or homosexuality is associated with the word abomination. That's where I'm at this time. The thought of being gay scared me, not because of what is tied to being gay, but what Christians have tied to being gay. My mom was the type that if she saw a woman holding hands with another woman in public, she would literally gag. So I never wanted my mom to look at me like that. Not only that, I didn't want other people to look at me like that. But back to the timeline. I'm about 10 years old, and this is where I have that oh no moment. I don't think a lot of people realize how this realizing that you're gay for some people is an oh no moment. Like, oh no, oh no, I'm gay. That was an oh no moment for me. What am I gonna do now? How am I going to be me and be the child that my parent wants me to be? And being a pastor's child only added fuel to this fear of being gay. So for me, being a PK was a lot of pressure. Like, you are the product of the pastor of this church. So if the product of the pastor of the church doesn't exhibit his teachings and his beliefs, then the church in turn would look at the kids as an inconsistency in their belief. So if my dad's up there preaching how women should be wearing skirts and his daughter is not wearing skirts, that would be inconsistent for a church. So similar to that, my father preaching how homosexuality is an abomination and me being gay was not going to work in my head. In a weird way, church back then, I haven't been to church in a while just because my dad passed and it's hard for me to commit to a new pastor. But church back then, it seemed like it was rooted in competition, especially with PKs. Like, when we visited church, and we visited churches a lot, how the pastor's children act is always talked about after church. So seeing that routine with my family, I can only imagine that that is happening in other families. So of course my parents molded us into what they wanted the church to see. So once I knew that I was gay and there was nothing that I can physically do about it, I just decided to hide it as best as I could. I wore skirts from the day I was born until 11th grade of high school. So I already knew that that was one shield for me. And by shield, I mean, I feel like people can always point to the fact that I'm wearing a skirt and debunk the fact that I may be gay, right? There was that, but hiding it was not easy. Hiding it at home and hiding it in front of my peers were two different things. Hiding a part of myself from my family resulted in praise. I'm being the daughter that they want me to be. Hiding myself in front of my peers was anxiety inducing. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know if I could be myself. I didn't know how to be myself. There's no way for me to bring my whole self to a table without bringing all of me. So back on the timeline, at this time I'm 10 years old, I'm in an all black school, and I start looking up things like girls kissing girls or girls dating girls, stuff like that. I feel like most gays start there, girls kissing girls. So I look up things like that, and I'd always remember to clear my history because I didn't have a computer at the time. I was like using my mom's computer. But one time, I fell asleep with the laptop, and my mother got the laptop and she checked the history. And I'll never forget this. She came and woke me up out of my sleep and was sitting on the edge of my bed. And she said, "What are you doing looking this up?" And in that moment, all I can remember is a surge go through my body all the way to the soles of my feet. Like it felt like my stomach dropped to my feet. But she said, "What are you doing looking this up?" I'm not sure exactly what I said, but I've tried to deny it or try to give an explanation that wasn't, "I'm gay." I wasn't ready to do that. So after I said what I said, she said, "I'm going to have to tell your dad about this, right?" And in that moment, I kid you not, there was only two options for me: unalive myself or run away from this situation. So mind you, this is about 8 o'clock. Mom leaves the room, and I'm thinking, if we're not going to talk about this right now, we're going to talk about it tomorrow. So I have time to do one of the two things. Nothing was going through my head but how my parents view gay people. Like, my parents' view of gay people was so stern that I didn't feel like, even if it was their child, could change the way they feel about this. Like, my parents would say that they're going to hell. Gay people are going to hell. So over the next 2 hours, I began to pack up any essential things that I needed. I remember packing about 2 shirts, 2 pants, a couple pairs of underwear, and the biggest bottle of Tylenol I can find. Once everyone was asleep, I got my bag and I got out the back door. I wrote a note. I did write a note. I don't remember what it said, but I know that in that note I acknowledged that I was liking girls. So I got my bag and I ran away. And I can't get into too much details as where I ran, but I know I ended up at an abandoned house that one of my relatives used to live at, but now it's like trees overgrown into it and everything. I got in through the window and I sat in the what was left of the living room. I remember sitting there crying in tears and breaking Tylenol pills because I knew for a fact that this is the way. This is all I can do. This is all I can do. There's not, what else at this age? What else can I do? So I had a mound of broken up Tylenol. I was pacing. I couldn't think of nowhere else to run, no one else to call. So I started taking the pills. And I'll say about 10 pills in, my brother comes knocking. I will never forget this moment. He comes busting down the door like a superhero. In that moment, he was my superhero. My brother literally saved me a couple times in my childhood because he was the only one that loved me no matter what. And he busted through that door and he just ran and grabbed me and held me. And I'm breaking down in my brother's arm. And he ushers me to the car. My dad's with him. My dad drove him there. And at this point, I'm like, okay, we're here. How bad can mom's reaction be? It can't be that bad. But boy, was I mistaken. I come home, still crying, still frazzled. As I'm approaching the door, I've never heard my mother crying out and praying so loudly. I heard her prayer and screaming. Just screaming. And then as I opened the door, it was just a blast of screaming. And my mother is rolling on the floor, saying, "No, God, no." And all I could do was go to my room. Because to be honest, anytime I tell the truth, I feel it, I can't help but feel better. So I told the truth. It was on the table. So whatever was going to happen was going to happen, but I did my part. So there was a sense of I might be okay. I might. So I'm in my room. Hours go by. The praying stopped. And my mom come in my room. And she gets in the bed with me and like spoons me. And she says this in my ear: "I know you're not gay. I know you're just trying to cry out for help." And although she was meaning to be endearing, that hurt me more than her crying out on the floor. Because it seemed like even telling my truth wasn't enough to prove myself. So fast forward to high school. I moved schools. I'm in a half white, half black kind of school now, where I'm seeing people express themselves more. They have more freedom to express themselves. This school also has sports, something my old school did not have. So I start getting into sports. I fall in love with volleyball. I fall in love with basketball, and I really wanted to play softball. And at this time, I'm still wearing skirts. I'm playing basketball in a skirt. I'm playing volleyball in a skirt. I'd make the team. My mom would get the uniform and sew it into a skirt. I commend her for that. She did what she had to do. So I'm playing volleyball and basketball in a skirt, and I really want to play softball. But every time I ask her if I can try out, she says no. "You're not gonna be able to do all that sliding in that skirt." I said I was hoping I can wear the uniform. I said, I'll practice in whatever you want me to practice in, but I was hoping I can wear the uniform. And she said no. I don't know why this triggered me so much, but it did. So next day, my dad has a stroke. He ends up in the hospital. When I get to the hospital, I have a panic attack. The nurses brings me to the pediatric side of the hospital and check me in because it was a really bad panic attack and I couldn't get a hold of it. And as they're checking me in and checking me out, checking my vitals, one of the nurses, it was a male nurse, he notices my scars. And at that particular hospital, once they notice those things, they are obligated to do something. So they tell my mom that they're gonna admit me into a mental institution. I stay there for about a week. I'm not gonna get into too much on my stay there. When I did open up about being gay to the doctors, the doctor that was assigned to me advised me to, and I quote, not touch it with a 10-foot pole. I'll never forget that. When it came to me being gay in a religious household, not to touch it with a 10-foot pole. In some way that helped, in a weird way, but that was what I was told. But in this institution, we'd have family visits. And so the first 2 times my family came and visit, we'd have conversations about things. But it wasn't until the last visit where I explained to them how I really want to play softball. I never told them anything about the gay stuff. It was all about at least let me try to get comfortable in my own life. So I asked him if I can at least play softball. And in that session, we came to an agreement that my dad would let me play softball. It took all that, but he said, if that's what you want, you can play softball. From that point on, my parents started to understand how much anxiety played a part in my life. It never crossed their minds before this. It was a very pivotal point in my coming out story. I didn't come out yet to them, but they saw me a little bit better. They was able to see me as my own person a little bit better. So at this point in high school, I'm good. I could play sports and whatever I want. I go home, do what I'm supposed to do. Come to school, do what I want to do. That was the routine. I'd leave home in a skirt, get to school, change it to pants. That was my routine from 11th grade to 12th grade at least. I graduated high school and I'm on my way to a university where I will be away from my parents, away from anybody I know, and I can just restart. And that was my plan, to restart. And that's what I did. I started building my own image, all that. But in this first year of college, I get into a relationship with a girl. And I can't remember exactly what prompted me to say, I have to come out to my parents now. I have to let them know what's going on. I think because I didn't want to hide stuff from my parents. I never wanted to hide stuff from my parents. That's not fair to the person I'm with, and that's not fair to my parents. And it's not fair to me to ask me to hide something that I want to tell you. So I get in a relationship, and I think me and the girl is thinking about moving in together, moving off of campus into an apartment together. But for me, in order to do that, I had to come clean to my parents. So because last time it didn't work, I decided to just write a long message. A long message explaining to them, basically, I'm gay, mama. I'm gay. So obviously, after that message is sent, they called me. I was already expecting a call. I was scared from the moment I sent that message. I was scared. I thought I was going to get disowned. Even though at this time I'm 18, I'm my own adult. For me, being disowned didn't have to do with paperwork. It was having to do with them saying, you're no longer my daughter. I was expecting that. But they called me. And I can't remember exactly what was said. But the whole gist of the conversation was, I don't want my daughter to go through the tribulations of this lifestyle. And I could deal with that. That's okay. I understand that as a parent, you don't want your child to go through something that you don't know how to navigate. Everything that you've seen got to deal with being gay is trauma, marching, protests, getting killed for being who you are. I understand that. I would have the same fear. So that conversation didn't go as I expected. It did go much better than I expected. Obviously, they say don't bring it around the house. When you come to this house, you still wear skirts. That's fine. That's not my house. I'm a grown person, I understand, but those are also my parents. Whatever you like. I can compromise. That's fine. So from that point on, I'm out the closet. But I did all that I can do. I respect their households, and they do their best to respect me. They still talk about how it's wrong and stuff, but hey, I'll take it. So that was my light at the end of the tunnel. That compromise, that I'm going to give you the right to be yourself and let God deal with you. Amen. I liked that. That was great. And to this day, I appreciate my parents for doing that. And I had to understand that my parents were their own people with their own history. So I don't hold it against them. It took me coming out for me to realize how hard it is for them to, in a way, let their daughter go. But ever since that day, I've been out the closet. And I'm not gonna sit here and say it's been easy, but it's been less of a burden because I'm not hiding myself. Like, after my dad died, my mom said, "You know your dad missed this little girl, right?" What? Like, I'm a daddy's girl. Everybody know that. My mama know that. So I really felt like she was trying to be hateful. I think she thought that was the straw that broke the camel back, as far as now she's going to consider being straight. I don't know. For you to hold that information and to tell me after he passed, that is hurtful. And as far as my extended family, they don't mind. They don't really, at least they don't judge me. Being in my mother's presence, if I were to act or present anything gay-ish, the judgment is coming. But you gotta take your wins. You gotta take your wins. If you're able to live in your truth, take your wins. That's how I had to understand it. I had to learn that I might not be able to change my parents. And that's okay, because they're their own people. But I am too. So that is the gist of my coming out story. I don't know how helpful this would be, because everyone's story is different. But y'all should definitely use the comment section as a space to share your story, because you don't know who's gonna read it, you don't know who it might help. To anyone going through a similar situation, lean on the people that you have and try to see the bright side. That's what best helped me. And if someone was telling me that advice, I would actually hate them. But it does something. And also, be true to yourself. You're gonna feel the most freedom when you're true to yourself and you're living in your truth. And that's it. That's it. I hope this video ain't too long, but I hope y'all enjoyed it. Turn on your notification bells so you can tune in for my next video, because it's on the way. And y'all enjoy this beautiful weather and have a good day.